There's two different aspects to weight loss diets, the way that I see it. And obviously, coming from a competitive bodybuilding background, weight loss diets are a critical part of that process where, you're trying to shed that excess body fat to show, absolutely everything, all your muscles, all your definition on stage. And that's one stream of weight loss, but that's weight loss from not necessarily an overweight or unhealthy standpoint. It could be from a normal body weight, taking yourself down to an extreme level of low body fat. And then on the other hand, you have weight loss where you're starting off from an overweight or an obese standpoint, and you're trying to bring yourself back into a healthy weight range, and you may have other health markers that go along with that. So what I see has happened over the years is that people just blow all of that weight loss in together, and a lot of people who are doing what I guess are called performance weight loss, which is the weight loss to either make a weight class for an event, or or to get in shape, cut up for a bodybuilding competition where I'll stretch. You're taking your body to a point which is not considered normal, and it's levels of body fat which are not considered, healthy or something that you should be carrying for, an extended period of time. And they take a lot of the principles that apply to weight loss where you have got, excess body fat stores, and they get those two things confused. So there's weight loss and then there's performance weight loss. So I'll talk about both of those, but what I did want to talk about was just when I was looking at diets, and this is something which has fascinated me since I was a kid. When my stepmom had a book, and it had all of the common weight loss diets at the time. So there was things like Pritikin, Scarsdale, Atkins, South Beach, like that's just to name a few, but if you even just do a little bit of a Google search, there's hundreds of names come up. They even include things like paleo, they include things like vegan, all of these kind of diets. I've written a whole list here, Dukin, Scarsdale, keto, Atkins. So what I went back and looked at what kind of a category do they fall into. So essentially, we've talked in previous weeks about macros, so how we have, protein, fats and carbs making up, the three key macros. Obviously, there's fiber, but essentially most of the prescriptive diets, and when I say prescriptive, it's a diet which actually tells you how to break up your macros, versus a diet which might be more towards a lifestyle or a type of food, which might be sort of like a vegan lifestyle or a paleo lifestyle. So there's lifestyle diets, and then I call this prescriptive diets. So hey everyone, so I've got Randall, Chris, Arlene, and Yuji. Hello, Yuji. Good to see you on. So as I said, there's what I call prescriptive diets and what I call lifestyle diets. So the prescriptive diets are more, hey Radar, it's been a while since I've seen you. So they are the ones which are talking about a certain type of macro breakdown. So they might be saying that they are low fat and high carbohydrate, or low carb and high fat, high protein. So they're talking about how you actually manipulate your macros as opposed to focusing on the type of food that you eat. However, it all ends up intertwining. So I broke it down into, obviously the most popular kind of diets at the moment are the low carbohydrate diets. So they are things like the keto diet, the Atkins diet, the Dukin diet, and also they do involve things like the South Beach and Scarsdale. But the most popular ones really are the obviously keto, Atkins, are some of the most famous ones at the moment, or just the good old what people call low carb. Now, they will differ in terms of whether they have low carb and high fat or low carb and high protein. But essentially the principles are relatively the same. There are some key differences. I will talk through those. Then we have, on the other hand, the lifestyle diets, which I talked about, which are your food type, and they might be things like something like the DASH diet, which again, it's not typically a weight loss diet. It was more of a health diet, but that has now become used for weight loss. The Mediterranean diet, which is obviously a very, very famous diet because that's just an entire population was using this particular diet. Then obviously vegan and paleo, vegetarianism may come into that. A gluten-free diet may come into that. So these are all ones where it's more about, as I said, the type of food you eat. And then when it comes to performance, there's another type of diet I want to talk about, which is the zone diet, and that's a very macro-based diet, but it goes one step further, and it's very prescriptive in how you eat your foods, the timing of your foods, and the types of foods that you actually eat. So all of these different diets will suit different people based around how much you like calculating and weighing things, or how much you like more that freedom just to eat as you please and a certain type of food. The thing with dieting is it's so very, very personal, because I might have a preference for a certain type of food and somebody else might have a preference for another type of food. And if you put me on a diet where I have to eat salty bacon or a lot of fattier meats and stuff, like some of the low carb type of diets, I'll be sick because I just do not like that type of food. And then somebody else will absolutely love that type of food, and they will go very, very well on that type of diet. So it's one of those things where you obviously can't. Hey Sylvia. You can't force one style of diet onto somebody and expect them to stick to it if it doesn't work out for how they naturally like to eat. However, within reason, you can't just eat whatever you like because you happen to like it. So it has to be that balance of what's good for you and what is going to work for you. But the main thing too, when we're talking about diets, we'll also talk about what's an acute thing which you need to do. So a competition prep type of diet is one where you have, a 12-week period or a 16-week period where you must follow this particular diet, but you don't eat like that for the whole year, the whole time. On the weight loss side of things, where you're trying to get your body weight down, it really is the same principle, where a lot of the time it's that acute 3-month period or 6-month period where you need to get yourself back into a state where you're now healthy again, and then you have to go over to a maintenance type of diet. So there's different diets that are appropriate for different times, and obviously there has to also be the aim for a healthy lifestyle. I am, a huge proponent of that, where whatever you do has to be sustainable, and whatever you do has to be good for your long-term health. You can't do something really crazy and then have it all just go back to the way that it was. So I'll start off and I want to talk about the low-carb diet. So basically, as I said, within this range, there's a few different variety or variations on this particular diet, but essentially they all work by the fact that you are restricting your carbohydrates. So you're forcing your body to work on, burning fat instead of carbohydrate as an energy source, so that, ketotic, or you put your body into a state of ketosis. So what's really great about these kind of diets, or what the research has found, is that, number one, they are an excellent way for people who are obese or who are overweight to get their weight down very, very quickly. They are more effective at losing large amounts of fat. And this, again, is talking about where people have a lot of fat to lose. It is also saying where people are not overly active, because obviously a lot of the time when someone is heavily overweight, for them to do high impact work or to do a lot of exercise can actually be, counterproductive to their health, particularly where they do have things like, high blood pressure or other issues, potentially joint issues from carrying that weight. When we're fit and active, a whole different set of rules apply. But when you're, someone starting off from a pretty bad state, you've got to bring them very quickly into a state which is very healthy again. Then this is where these, the very low carbohydrate, and we're talking like, less than 5 or 10% of the calories coming from carbohydrate. Now, I'm gonna stop right there for a minute and just say, unfortunately, if you don't like maths, nutrition is mathematical. Like, nutrition is maths-based. Everything, whether it be your macros of your food, looking at what is in a food, the percentages of what's in a food, the percentages of where your energies are coming from. Hey, Robert, thank you. You have to start to get your head around that. Or, obviously, you can choose to go for a more lifestyle-based diet, but this is going to be a much slower process. But if you're very, very not into your maths, then that is the kind of diet for you, because at some point you're going to have to check a nutritional panel, you're going to have to, potentially weigh your food, but it is all very, very mathematical based. There's no way around it. So again, I'll just stress, when we're talking about percentage of calories, we're talking about looking at the calories that you take in, which might be, say, 2,000. If we say 10% of that is 200 calories coming from a particular nutrient, and then you have to divide that number by how many calories per gram are in that particular nutrient. So if you're saying 10% of a 2,000 calorie diet, that's 200 calories, it made up of carbs, that's about 50 grams of carbs. So I'm just putting that out there because you'll start to get used to it, you'll start to get your head around